Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So we are going to be computing WACC now. After all the breakdown, now I want to solve a full question. You understand? I want to compute WACC. So now, what is WACC, right? WACC means like the average. The average after you've calculated after you've calculated all the sources of finance. So the average of that sources of finance is known as WACC, right? The end goal of cost of capital, and the rest is for us to know what the average it costs the company. Do you understand? That's weighted average cost of capital. At the end of the day, all the sources of finance, what is the average? You understand? What is the average that is going to cost the company, or all of it, all the sources of finance? So that's the essence of WACC. So now for us to calculate WACC, we have steps for WACC computation. First of all, steps. Number one, first of all, you have to identify the sources of finance. Yes, you have to know if it's okay, if there is ordinary share capital, if there is redeemable debt, if there is preference share, if there is debt, irredeemable bank loan, no notes, all those things. First of all, identify the sources of finance. So another thing, after identifying the sources of finance, another thing you want to do is to compute the cost of those sources of finance, those percentage that we calculated, that we were saying, okay, cost of equity is 10%, you understand? So our debt is 5.2%, like the one we did earlier. So all those percentage, then calculate the cost of the sources of finance. Do you understand? Of the sources of finance that you identify. You understand? The another thing you want to do, 3. You see these sources of finance. Now you now have to calculate the total market value. You understand? Calculate the total market value of the sources of finance that you identify. You understand? The reason why I'm not really specific of the sources of finance, because sources of finance varies from question to questions. There are some questions you have ordinary share capital, that's cost of equity. There are some you have debt, you understand? There are some you have redeemable, there are some you have preference share, there are some you will not have preference share. There are some that will not have redeemable, there are some that will have no notes, there are some that will not have no notes. So that's why I cannot really specify. So it depends on the question. It depends on the sources of finance that you identify in the question, right? So after that, the next thing you want to do is to calculate the cost of the sources of finance that you identify earlier. What are the costs? What are the percentage costs? You understand? Then another thing is for you to now calculate the total market value of the sources of finance. Okay, now what are the total market value of the sources of finance? You understand? So that one has its own formula. So if we solve the question, you understand. Then number 4, you now calculate your WACC. Compute your WACC. That's weighted average cost of capital. So now that's all. That's all for this. Now I want to solve our question. I'm trying to manage this board, so I'm going to divide it into 2. So this question that we've been breaking down, do you get? So we want to solve the full one now, so that we can get our WACC. This same question. So the first thing we are going to do is for us to check our requirements. When you are solving any question, you have to go you have to check your requirements so that you know what the question requires of you. So now our first requirement A, say calculate the market value weighted average cost of capital of YK PLC. That's YK. Our question is okay. YK PLC. So you know in ICANN it's important for you to write the name of the company, right? It's very, very important. So now we are going to remember our first step. Our first step is that we should identify our sources of finance. So now what is our sources of finance? Step 1, right? Sources of finance. So in this question now, yes, our sources of finance, we have ordinary shares, right? Okay, that's ordinary shares, that's equity. Ordinary shares, that means we are going to calculate cost of equity. Another one is we have preference shares. You understand? Preference shares, okay. We have preference shares. Remember, this preference share is under debt. Remember. So another one is bond, 7% bond, redeemable. That's we have redeemable bond. Okay, bond. That's redeemable bond. And another one we have bank loan. So now, which means we have 4 sources of finance. So you can see we don't have no note here. You understand? So that's why I was saying it depends on the question. So there are some questions you might not even have preference shares. There are some questions you have convertible bonds. So it depends on the question. So since we've identified our sources of finance, now another thing we are going to do is for us to pick it one after the other and compute the cost. That's according to our step 2. We should calculate the cost of the sources of finance. Step 2, calculate the cost of each sources of finance. So which means now we are going to start with ordinary shares, right? We are going to start with ordinary shares. Number 1, ordinary share capital. Ordinary share capital. So now if you want to calculate ordinary shares capital, now you now ask yourself, okay, which method of equity valuation am I going to use? Is it dividends or is it CAPM? Is it dividends or is it CAPM? You get? So you go back to your question. Your question will tell you if it's CAPM, you will see CAPM element. You understand? CAPM formula element. If it is dividend, you see dividend element. So now it says the ordinary share capital of YKPS has an SDIV market value of 4.70 per share and an ordinary dividend of 36.3 kobo per share has been paid. Historical dividend payments have been as follows, which means is dividend valuation we are going to use, not CAPM. You see, we have dividend element there, which means it's dividend we are going to use, right? Okay, so now the next thing we want to do is for us to say, okay, that means we are going to use interpolation, which means that dividend is growing. You understand? Remember, we said when we are using dividend valuation method, is it that dividend is growing or dividend is not growing? You understand? So in this case, now dividend is growing. We now say, okay, ordinary share capital. Now say dividend valuation method. You understand? Growing dividends. KE is equal to 1 plus G, then plus G all over market value XD. right? So this is our formula. This is what we're going to use. You get, because mainly looking at the question, it shows that dividend is growing. So now for us to calculate our growth rate, what are we going to do? We'll say, okay, that's an interpolation of historical dividend. This one now is not got done. You understand? The reason why it's not got done, you see, it gave us dividend in list. Like we solved this question yesterday. I guess you should understand. So we now say n, okay, yes, to calculate growth rate, to calculate growth rate, we use interpolation of historical dividend. You understand? So we use interpolation of historical dividends. Now, the next thing we want to do is to write out the formula, which is n minus 1 bracket, raised to square root current dividend all over earliest minus 1. So n, which is 5 years minus 1 year, all over, what is our current dividend? Our current dividend is 36.3 kobo. 36.3 kobo all over our earliest is 30.9 kobo. You understand? Minus 1. We solved this question yesterday. This was what we solved yesterday. Okay, so we now say 36.3 divided by 30.9. We have 4 square root 1.175 minus 1. We now say square root. We now say 1.041 minus 1. So we have equals to 0.041. That means the growth rate is, that's the growth rate. Now we now want to solve, we now want to put it in our formula, right? For us to get our cost of equity. Now KE, you now say KE is equals to, what's our current dividend? Our current dividend is 36.3 kobo. Yes, I want to make correction. So I made mistake here yesterday. You see this 36, you know, anyway, I said anywhere you see kobo, as far as you are doing this, you are using this formula, you have to convert it to naira. Yes, I made mistake. I was carried away. So I made mistake. I didn't convert it to naira. I just used kobo. That's why we had 8%. It's not supposed to be 8%. So when I was watching the video, I now saw that I made mistake. So sorry about that. So now we now say, okay, so this 36, that's the current dividend, 0.3 divided by 100. We are going to have 3.3363 kobo, right? Then 1 plus our growth rate, which is 0.41, right? Plus growth rate, which is 0.41, all over market value. What's our market value? Which is 4.7 naira. So our market value is already in 4.7 naira. So we don't need to convert it again. If it was in kobo, we would have divided by 100. But since it's already in naira, there is no point doing that. So now 7 point. So now our KE is going to be 0.041, 1 plus 0.041, right, times 0.363 divided by 4.70, then plus 0.041, then times 100. So our KE is equals to 12%. So which means that our cost of capital is 12%, right? So the next thing we want to do now is for us to calculate the total market value of equity. So we need to calculate the total market value of equity. Now, how do we calculate the total market value of equity? Please, I want to clean this. Then, total market value of equity. Immediately you finish calculating your cost of equity, you've gotten your cost of equity or the cost of your sources of finance. The next thing for you to do is to, okay, is it in our formula set? Yes. Calculate the market value. Yes, the total market value. So it's wise for you to be doing it as you are finishing your sources of finance, as you are computing the cost. Just be doing the market value straight right away. So to conclude, total market value, right? This is like step 3 now, but for cost of equity, you understand? So total market value, okay, let's say step 3. Total market value. Total market value is number of ordinary shares, number of ordinary, right? Ordinary shares divided by nominal value times market value SD times market value, you understand, of ordinary share. So now okay, now we now say number of ordinary shares in our question is 4 million. No, 000 is up, so we are going to say, okay, 4,000, although it's 4 million, the iPhone 00. So we now say 4,000, right? Or should we just do it in total? Okay, let's just say 4 million, right? So divided by nominal value. What's our nominal value? Nominal value of 50 kobo. So that 50 kobo, we are going to divide it by 100. Divided by 100. It will give us 0.5, which means 0.5. Then times the market value. The market value, say the ordinary share of YKP has an S-div market value. Let's say S-div. Has an SD market value of 4.7 naira, which is 4.70. You understand? Now let's calculate so that we know our total market value for cost of equity. So it's going to be 4 million divided by 0.5 times 4.70. We have 37,600,000. That's our total market value. So 37,600,000. See, that's our total market value for cost of equity. So now we've gotten our first sources of finance, which is ordinary share, right? So I'm going to be writing it up because this board is very small. So our ordinary share, ordinary share, we'll keep it. KE is equals to, what was the KE? Okay, 12%. Then market is what? 37 million 600. So we keep this one aside. So now we're now going to move to our second sources of finance. So we move to our second sources of finance. So our second sources of finance is preference share, right? Preference share. So remember, our preference share formula is KP is equals to preference dividend all over market value x div. This is our formula, right? So now we'll now check the question again now. So we are done with ordinary share. Everything we are done with ordinary share. Now the second paragraph says the preference share of YK PLC are not redeemable and have an SDIV market value of 40 kobo per share. Okay, so we said market market that's the SDIV market value. Okay, now we'll now say market value is equals to 40 kobo. You see this 40 kobo, we are going to divide it by 100. Remember, with anything kobo, divide by 100 so that it will give you your naira value. Is equals to, is it not 0.4? 40 divided by 100. Okay, so we have 0.4. Okay, now that we are done with that, and I said yes, okay, 40 kobo. So we now come to our question, 40% preference shares, right? Now we now want to get our current and that's okay, that 40% preference share, that's 40% in the question, right? Times this 30, that's the 40% preference shares, right? Times this 3 million. Times 3 million, we have 120,000. So this 120,000 is the current dividend. So now we want to calculate the total dividend per share. It will now be 120 divided by 3 million. You understand? We have 120 divided by 3, we have 0.04. So these are current dividend per share, right? So now the next thing we want to do now is that we now want to impute our formula, right? Bring our formula. Now say KP is equals to preference dividend. What's our preference? Which is 0.04. Yes, 0.04 divided by the market value SD, which is 0.4 kobo. 0.4 kobo is equals to divided by 0.4 is we have 1.1. So when you times it by 100, it will give us 10%. So it means that the cost of preference share is 10%. That's what it means. So now we want to calculate the total market value of preference shares. Okay, so the total market value of preference share is number of preference shares, right? Divided by nominal value of preference shares times market value x div. You see. So now, what is our preference share value? Our preference share value is 3 million. You understand? 3 million. So we'll now divide it by the nominal value. Our nominal value in the question is 1 naira. 1 naira. Then times, what is the market value? Our market value is 40 kobo, which we divided by 100 earlier, and it gave us 0.4, which is yes, 0.4. So for us to calculate it now, let's say okay, 3 million divided by 1 to give us 3 million, and times 0.4, we now have 1.2 million. That's the total market value. 1.2 million, right? So 1.2 million, that's our total market value. So the next thing we want to do now, okay, so we'll bring it here again, we'll keep it, you understand? We are keeping it for a reason. Calm down, you see. So we now have preference share. We say preference shares is equals to 10%. The market is equals to 1.2. Right. So now want to clean this now so that we can move to our another sources of finance. So what's our other sources of finance? Our other sources of finance is 7% bond that's redeemable after 6 years. Our other source of finance is that's bond, redeemable bond, redeemable. You get? Let's put it there. Redeemable. So remember earlier I said when you want to calculate your redeemable bond, or sorry, when you want to calculate anything redeemable, you first of all have to look for your elements like market value. That's what we just saw in our previous class. So I'm going to say, okay, 7%, right? You said the market value, you said 7% bond are redeemable at 5% premium, right? So at 5% premium. Should we solve this again? Because that's what we just solved in this class. Just like that's what we just solved in our previous. Should we just do it? Okay. So we said market value, our ingredient. We want to bring out our ingredient. Now we have market value of of market value essential of 104.50. Another thing is our interest. Annual interest is 7%. So when you times it by 100 divided by 100, it will give you 7 naira. So another one is tax save. Tax save. The company paid, or tax relief. The company paid tax at the rate of 30%. So now I'm going to say, okay, 7 this interest times 0.3, that's 30%, equals to, we've solved it too. That's why I'm rushing. 2.1. You understand? So another thing also is premium. Of course, premium too. Premium is going to give us, premium is 5% times 100 divided by 100 is giving us 5 naira. Right? Then which other one again? Then redemption. Of course, redemption is 100. So these are our ingredients. Now we also have to compute the IR table. The IR table, final rate of return. So now we're now going to say, okay, we now say at year, we say year, item, we have cash flow, we have DCF, we have PV, we have DCF, under DCF we have PV. Right, now we now say, okay, year 0 is market, of course, market value, which is 104.50, and DCF are 2%. You know, the one we solved earlier, of course. So, and DCF at 10%, 1, right? So, which is so now I'm going to say, okay, what's it called? Sorry guys. So the market. Okay, our first one is going to be interest. That's annual interest. Annual. Okay, year 1 to 6. Year 1 to 6. Our annual interest was 7 naira now. Yes. And year 1 to 5. using annuity factor, what did we get earlier? What did we have? Was it not 5 points? Okay, let's just do it again. 1 minus 1 plus 0.02 raised to power minus 6 divided by 0.02. So yes, 5.6. We had 5.6 earlier. You understand? We have 5.6, right? So now the other one, which is also tax save, tax relief or save, you understand? Tax relief was 2.1, which is also for the period of that year. So now we're not going to multiply the, okay, let's say redemption, year 6 redemption, which is 100. Then year 6 as well, premium, which is 5%. So now this one, we're no longer going to use annuity, right? We're going to use just the 6, which is 1 plus 0.06 raised to power minus 6. Sorry, that's 1 plus 0.02 raised to power minus 6. Okay, so to give us 0.89, 0.89, right? So now we're not going to multiply it. We have 7 times 5.6, we have 39.2, then 1.1 times 5.6, we have 12. Remember, it's in flow, so we are deducting it. Then 100 times 0.89, we have 89, and 5 times 0.89, we have 4.45, right? So okay, yes, PV is so okay, when I say 4.45 plus 89 minus 12 plus 39.2, then minus 404.50, we have 16, positive 16.15. Yes, positive 16.15. So the next one, the next this thing I want to use annuity factor for is 10%, so that it will give us negative value. You understand? So that 10%, we say, okay, 1 minus bracket 1 plus 0.1 raised to power minus 6 divided by 0.1. We have 4.36, which is 4.36. 4.36. So 1 plus 0.1 raised to power minus 6. We have 0.56, 0.56, because this is year 6. You understand? So now we also times it. 4.36 times 7, we have 30.52, right? 2.1 times 4.36, we have 9.16. Yes. So 100 times 0.56, we have 56, and 5 times 0.56, we have 2.8. Now plus 56 plus 30.52 minus 9.16, then minus 404.50. So this gives us negative value. So now we want to use our internal rate of return formula, which is LR plus NPV at lower rate all over NPV at lower rate plus NPV. So this is NPV at higher rate, bracket H minus 1. So we just compute it straight. Now say 0.02 then bracket 16.15, then 16.15 plus 24.34. We have 8, and it gave no, we solved it earlier. So let's just compute it. We have 5.2%. So this is our cost of debt. So now that we've gotten our cost of debt, the next thing we want to do is to calculate our total market value of cost of debt. Right? So I'm wiping this off. So what's our total market value of cost of debt? Total market value of debt. Right. So we'll look at our question again. Okay, so our debt is also 3 million, right? So ordinary, that's total numbers of total 3 million, right, divided by the nominal value. Does it have nominal value? No, it doesn't have nominal value. So we are just going to, okay, it has nominal value. You go back to your question. Premium to their nominal value of 100 per bond, 100 times the market value. Market value is interest of 104.50. You understand? So now let's check what our 3 million divided by 100. That's 30,000 times. We have our total market value is 313500. So now we'll bring it here again. We'll keep it here. We say bond or redeemable. Redeemable bond is 5.2%, right? Then the total market value is 3,135 million, 3,135,000. So we are done with this. Another one, we're now going to move to the other sources of finance. You see, either you'll be computing it small. Before you know, you are done. You know, we are trying to get our WACC. Okay, so now we have our other source of finance, which is long-term bank loan. Long-term bank loan. So you know this bank loan, the formula is straightforward. Bank loan is equals to interest, right, all over 1 minus tax rate. That's all you need. So this interest now, this bank loan has, you say the bank loan has a variable interest rate that has averaged 4% per year in recent years. So that means it's 4%. 4%. Then 1 minus tax rate, which is 30%. So 30% divided by 100, you have your 0.3. It's still the same thing, no? Just for us, I'll be able to subtract it, of course, because you cannot subtract 1 minus 30%, you know now. So you have to convert it to normal figure. So I'll be able to do that. 0.3, that's 0.7, then times 4%, which is 0.04, times 0.04 times 100. So we have, if we convert it back to, we have 2.8%. You understand? So this is our bank note. So now we'll also compute the total market value of this bank note. Bank note is 1,000. So that bank note, in terms of the market value, is going to remain the same. Do you understand? It's going to remain the same in the this they gave us. So the bank note here is 1,000. You get, so it's going to remain the same because they did not give us any other information about market price regarding bank note. So that's why we are just going to leave it like that. You understand? Please kindly go through the question so that as I'm solving it, when you finally go back to watch it, as I'm solving, you are looking at the question, you understand it. Okay, so this is our percentage. Now we now want to calculate. Okay, we say a bank loan. We bring it here again. Bank loan is 2.8%. The market value is 20. That's 1,000, or that's 1,000,000. Yes, 1,000,000. Now we now want to compute our WACC finally. So now for us to compute our WACC now, for us to compute our WACC, we now say sources of finance, sources of finance, right? Sources of finance. We have ordinary shares, ordinary what? Ordinary shares. Let me take this up a little. So we have ordinary shares. So we now have the total market value. We now say total market value, right? So this total market value of ordinary share will bring it from there, 37 point. You see. Then another thing we want to do, now say, okay, the cost. What did it cost? Now say cost of capital. You understand? Which is what? 12% for that. So we now have our hash total. Our hash total will now say, okay, 37,600 times 12% is going to give us 4,512,000. Yes. So we'll now come again. Our other sources of finance, which is preference shares. We have the market value was 1.2 million, and we have 10% cost of capital, which is times. So 120, we have 120,000, right? So we have 120,000. So the next one is our redeemable bond. Redeemable bond, the market value was 3,135,000, right? Then and we have the percentage was 5.2%. So now say 5.2 divided by 100, then times 3,135,000. That's 3,135,000. Yes. So that means we have 163,020. So the next one is our bank loan. Our bank loan is 1 million. So 28% cost of capital, which is times 1 million. We have 28,000. So now we now say, okay, the total of this and the total of this, 37, right, plus 1, 2, plus plus 1 million. So we have 42,935,000. So this one we have 4,512 plus 120,000 plus 16302 then plus 28,000. This one give us 4,823,020. Right. So now we now say okay, our WACC now, that's weighted average cost of capital. We now say WACC is equals to hash total all over total market value, right, which is 4,823,020 all over 42,935,00 divided by 42,935,00. 42,935,00. So we have times 100. So we have 11%. This is our WACC, weighted average cost of capital. You understand? So this is everything about WACC. So in other textbooks, you will see another formula. Yes, you will see other formula that say, I think the formula is WACC is equals to KE times VE all over VE plus VB 1 minus T. You understand? All those, that long one. So that long one. So it depends on the one you want to use. Yes, this is the most simplest, This I like to calculate my own. So yeah, so this is everything about WACC. Thank you for staying with me. Please kindly like, subscribe, and share to your friends. See you on my next one. Bye bye.